Her name was Laci, and she was the kind of woman who made the world feel brighter just by being in it. In the fading light of Christmas Eve, 2002, in the quiet Central Valley town of Modesto, California, that light was extinguished, plunging her family, her community, and eventually the entire nation into a shadowy mystery where the most trusted face would become the most feared. This is not just a story of a crime. It is a chilling blueprint of a perfect life, meticulously dismantled. A narrative of betrayal so profound it would redefine the true crime landscape for a generation. Laci Peterson was, by all accounts, the picture of vibrant, all-American promise. A kurang 27-year-old substitute teacher. She was universally described as warm, outgoing, and brimming with a contagious joy. Her life was one of orderly, happy progression. A loving marriage to her college sweetheart, Scott Peterson, a comfortable home, and a golden retriever named Mackenzie. At the time of her disappearance, she was 8 months pregnant with a son they planned to name Cole. Photographs from that December show, a radiant woman, her hands cradling, her pronounced baby bump, her smile wide and open. She was the anchor of her family, the organizer of social gatherings. A woman who meticulously planned her baby shower and looked forward to motherhood with unbridled excitement. Her husband, Scott, presented a mirror image of this bliss. A charming, affable fertilizer salesman, he appeared to be the devoted partner, attending prenatal appointments and sharing in the anticipation. But behind the charming facade was a meticulously constructed lie, a second life running on a parallel, sinister track. The idyllic facade cracked on December 24th. Scott Peterson called his in-laws panicked, saying he had returned from a solo fishing trip to the Berkeley Marina, nearly 2-hour drive from Modesto. Find the house unlocked, Mackenzie in the backyard with a muddy leash, and Laci gone. Her car was still in the driveway. Her purse, wallet, and phone were left behind. The immediate response was a tidal wave of community solidarity. Thousands of volunteers, coordinated by a distraught Scott, scoured parks and fields. Candlelight vigils were held. The nation watched, hoping for the safe return of the beautiful, pregnant woman. Scott, in countless television interviews, pleaded for her return, his voice often breaking. "I just want my wife back," he told Diane Sawyer, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses. Yet, to the increasingly sharp eyes of investigators, the cracks were widening. The fishing trip on Christmas Eve was odd. His story was just a little too clean, his emotions just a little too performative. The alibi felt staged, a solitary activity with no witnesses, perfectly placed to provide a cover for something far more sinister. As the search for Laci intensified, the investigation began to circle quietly and inexorably back to the grieving husband. Detectives learned that Scott Peterson was not the man he seemed. Just weeks before Laci vanished, he had begun an affair with a massage therapist named Frey. Their relationship was intense and serious. He had even told her, tragically, that he had lost his wife and that this would be his first Christmas without her, a statement made, while Laci was still very much alive, decorating her Christmas tree. This revelation was the first major twist, a seismic shock that reframed the entire case. The devoted husband was a philanderer, a man capable of breathtaking deceit. The investigation uncovered more. He had researched tidal patterns and currents in the San Francisco Bay, and he had purchased a small, inexpensive boat, the same one he claimed to have taken on his Christmas Eve fishing trip. The circumstantial net was tightening. The key question became agonizingly simple. Was Scott Peterson a man tragically caught in a web of unlucky coincidences? Or was he a cold-blooded calculator who had executed a horrific plan? The answer washed ashore on April 13th and 14th, 2003, a cruel twist of fate that delivered a devastating closure. The body of a full-term baby boy was discovered on the shore of the bay in Richmond. The next day, just a mile away, the badly decomposed body of a woman was found. Dental records confirmed the unthinkable. It was Laci Peterson, and the baby was Connor. The cause of death was undetermined, but the manner was unmistakable. Homicide. The location was the final, damning piece of the puzzle. Scott Peterson's alibi had placed him on the very waters where the remains of his wife and son were discarded. The prosecution's theory was now horrifically clear. On the morning of December 24th, Scott Peterson had murdered Laci in their home, transported her body in his truck to the Berkeley Marina, weighted her down, and dumped her from his small boat into the cold, deep waters of the San Francisco Bay. The perfect alibi had become the scene of the crime. What followed was a media circus and a courtroom drama of Shakespearean proportions. The trial of Scott Peterson for the double murder of his wife and unborn son began in June 2004, a spectacle broadcast daily to a captivated and horrified nation. The prosecution, led by Rick painted a portrait of a narcissistic man who saw his pregnant wife and impending fatherhood as a prison sentence. An anchor dragging down the bachelor lifestyle he craved with his mistress, they presented a mountain of circumstantial evidence. The affair with Frey, whose tearful, credible testimony was utterly devastating. The concrete anchors he made, the hair from Laci's head, found plucked with its roots still attached, on a pair of pliers in his boat, and the impossible timeline he had constructed. The defense, led by the flamboyant Mark Geragos, fought back, arguing the police had tunnel vision, ignoring the possibility of a satanic cult or a mysterious van scene in the neighborhood. They attempted to pick apart the forensics and create reasonable doubt. For months, the two narratives clashed. The tension in the San Mateo courtroom palpable. The climax of the trial was not a single piece of physical evidence, but the chilling totality of Scott's own words and actions. The most powerful revelation came from wiretapped phone calls between Scott and his parents, recorded after the bodies were found. In these calls, he was not a grieving husband, but a man calmly planning his escape. He discussed selling Laci's car, talked about fleeing to Mexico, and was caught on tape asking his brother to help him transfer hundreds of thousands of dollars. He had dyed his hair blonde, grown a beard, and was found in possession of over $10,000 in cash and his brother's passport when he was arrested. The man the public saw pleading for his wife's return was a fiction. The real Scott Peterson was a man who had already moved on, calculating his next move even as his son's body lay unidentified in a morgue. The jury saw the stark contrast between the public performance and the private calculation, and it was this portrait of cold-blooded premeditation that sealed his fate. On November 12, 2004, the jury returned a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder for Laci and second-degree murder for Connor. As the verdict was read, Scott Peterson showed no emotion, a final, chilling confirmation of his profound emptiness. The story of Laci Peterson endures not just because of the brutality of the crime, but because of the profound and intimate nature of the betrayal. It is a cautionary tale that the most dangerous monster is not the stranger in the shadows, but the one who shares your bed, the one who smiles for the camera and holds your hand, all while plotting your end. It forces us to question the very foundations of trust and the terrifying ease with which a human life can be reduced to an inconvenient obstacle. Scott Peterson sits on death row, his life a monument to the lie he lived, while Laci and Connor are remembered as symbols of stolen potential and devastating loss. The perfect life was a prison, and the only escape he could conceive was an act of unspeakable evil. Some monsters don't hide under the bed. They lie next to you in it. If stories like this keep you hooked, hit subscribe for more.